Commander Sarah Chun stood before the massive viewport of the research vessel Endeavour, watching the alien fleet materialize from hyperspace. Their ships were elegant, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them, making them appear almost ethereal against the star field. She had been tracking these vessels for 3 weeks now, ever since they had entered the outer rim of human space. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communications station. His voice carried an undertone of nervousness that Sarah couldn't blame him for. This was humanity's first confirmed contact with an alien civilization, and the weight of that moment pressed down on everyone aboard the bridge. "Put it through the universal translator and display it on screen," Sarah ordered, straightening her uniform. The translation software had been developed based on mathematical principles and basic physics, hoping that any advanced civilization would understand these fundamental concepts. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a being that defied easy description. It stood roughly humanoid in shape, but possessed an elongated skull that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Its skin appeared to be a translucent blue-green, and multiple sets of eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern dominated its face. When it spoke, the words came through in heavily accented but understandable English. "Greetings, primitive inhabitants of this system. I am High Assessor Kethvar of the Galactic Concordance. Your species has been observed and cataloged. According to our evaluation protocols, you have been classified as Level-1 primitives." Sarah felt her jaw clench at the casual dismissal in the alien's tone. "This is Commander Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. We welcome you to human space and hope for peaceful relations between our peoples." Kethvar's multiple eyes seemed to focus on her with what might have been amusement. "Your enthusiasm is noted, primitive. However, you misunderstand the nature of this interaction. This is not a diplomatic contact. This is a resource assessment and territorial claim. Your system contains several worlds suitable for our expansion needs." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face as the implications became clear. "Are you saying you intend to colonize our worlds?" "Colonize is such a crude term," Kethvar replied with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as condescension. "We prefer optimal utilization. Your primitive civilization will be relocated to preserve biodiversity. The Concordance has designated sanctuary worlds where Level-1 species can be maintained in their natural habitat." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's xenobiologist, stepped forward. "With respect, High Assessor, humanity has developed spaceflight, quantum communications, and fusion technology. Surely this qualifies us as more than Level-1? Kethvar's bioluminescent patterns shifted to what might have been the equivalent of laughter. "Primitive, your species has barely managed to leave your birth world. You use crude chemical propulsion and not even mastered gravity manipulation. Your longest journey was to your planetary satellite. The Concordance has been traveling between stars for over 50,000 of your years. We've established colonies on Mars and the outer moons," Sarah protested. Though even as she said it, she realized how pitiful it must sound to beings who had mastered interstellar travel millennia ago. "Barely functional outposts that require constant supply from your homeworld," Kethvar dismissed. "The evaluation is complete. You have 72 of your standard time units to begin evacuation procedures. Compliance is not optional." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Sarah stared at the empty screen for a long moment before turning to her crew. She could see the mixture of fear, anger, and desperation in their faces. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, open a priority channel to Earth Command. Dr. Vasquez, I want you to analyze everything we just recorded. Look for any weaknesses, any technical details we can exploit." Sarah's voice was steady despite the turmoil in her chest. "And someone get me Admiral Morrison on the line. Now." The next few hours passed in a blur of emergency communications and frantic preparations. Admiral Morrison's weathered face filled the main screen, his expression grim as Sarah finished her report. 72 hours, Morrison repeated slowly. "And they consider us Level-1 primitives." "Yes, sir. Their technology appears to be far beyond anything we've developed. Those ships materialized from what looked like hyperspace, and their scans penetrated our shields like they weren't even there." Morrison was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming against his desk. "Commander, I'm going to share something with you that's classified at the highest levels. There's a reason we've been so eager to explore deep space. And it's not just scientific curiosity. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Sir, in 2157, we discovered something in the outer system. A derelict vessel of unknown origin, completely dead, drifting in the void beyond Pluto's orbit. We've been studying it ever since, reverse engineering what we could, but most of the technology was too advanced for us to understand. You're saying we've had alien technology for over a century? Not just any alien technology, Commander. The ship we found was massive, easily 10 times the size of our largest vessels. But here's the interesting part. The materials showed signs of battle damage. Whatever built that ship was destroyed by something even more powerful. Sarah's mind raced as she processed this information. Do we know who built it? The xenoarchaeology team made some progress with the ship's databanks. What they found was fascinating and terrifying. The vessel belonged to something called the Hegemony, a galactic empire that controlled thousands of star systems. According to the records, they were wiped out by something they called the Sleeping Giants. Sleeping Giants? Morrison leaned forward, his expression intense. Commander, the records suggested that these Sleeping Giants weren't just another alien race. They were described as something that had been dormant for eons, something that awakened when threatened. The last entry in the ship's log mentioned that the Giants had appeared from nowhere, using technology that made the Hegemony's weapons look like stone axes. Sarah felt pieces of a larger puzzle starting to form in her mind. Admiral, what exactly did this Hegemony ship look like? Morrison smiled grimly. I think you can guess, Commander. The hull design, the propulsion signatures, even the weapon configurations match what we've observed from your new friends at Concordance. We believe the Concordants are the surviving remnants of the Hegemony. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. They've been here before. They know about Earth. More than that, Commander. They know about what destroyed their empire. The question is, do they remember what the Sleeping Giants actually were? Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through the noise. Commander, sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. I'm reading hundreds of new contacts. Sarah spun to face the tactical display, her heart hammering in her chest. The screen showed space around Earth filled with new signatures, but these weren't the elegant crystalline ships of the Concordance. These vessels were different, massive, angular, and somehow familiar. My God, Dr. Vasquez whispered from her station. Commander, I'm analyzing the whole configurations of these new ships. They match the design principles of the derelict vessel we've been studying. Admiral Morrison's voice came through the communication channel, tight with barely controlled excitement. Commander, you need to see this. We're receiving automated signals from those ships, broadcast on frequencies we've never seen before. The signals are in human languages: English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, dozens of others. Sarah stared at the tactical display as more ships continued to materialize. Each vessel was enormous, dwarfing even the largest Concordance ships. Their hulls were dark and scarred, as if they had weathered countless battles across the centuries. Admiral, are you saying these ships are human? Morrison's laugh held no humor. Commander, remember what I said about the Sleeping Giants? The xenoarchaeology team made one final discovery in the Hegemony ship's records. The Sleeping Giants weren't aliens at all. They were described as beings from a small, unremarkable world on the edge of known space. Beings who had been cataloged as Level-1 primitives. The bridge fell silent as the full implication became clear. Sarah watched the massive human vessels take positions around the Concordance fleet, and she began to understand that humanity's first contact with aliens wasn't the beginning of their story in the galaxy. It was the continuation of a much older tale. Commander, came Rodriguez's voice, barely above a whisper. I'm detecting weapon signatures from the human vessels. Energy levels are off the charts. These ships are powering up for battle. Sarah looked at the tactical display and saw that the Concordance fleet had gone into defensive formation, their elegant ships clustering together like frightened animals. After 50,000 years of expansion and dominance, they had encountered something that made them afraid. Open a channel to the lead human vessel, Sarah ordered. I need to know who's commanding that fleet. The main screen flickered, and Sarah found herself looking at a bridge that was both alien and familiar. The technology was clearly human in origin, but advanced far beyond anything she had ever seen. The person who appeared on screen was definitely human, though changed in subtle ways. His skin had a faint metallic sheen, and his eyes held depths that spoke of centuries of experience. "Commander Chun," the figure said in perfect English. "I am Captain Marcus Webb of the museum ship Retribution. We've been monitoring your situation." "Museum ship?" Sarah asked, confused. Captain Webb smiled, and there was something both sad and proud in his expression. "Commander, you're looking at the last survivors of humanity's first expansion into the galaxy. We've been fighting the Concordants and their predecessors for over 3,000 years. Most of our worlds are gone now, but we've learned a few things along the way." Sarah felt the universe shift around her as she realized the scope of what she was seeing. "You're saying humanity has been in space for millennia?" "Not your humanity, Commander. You represent the homeworld, the cradle of our species. We are what became of the humans who left Earth in the early days of space exploration. We found the galaxy was already inhabited by species like the Concordants, species that saw us as nothing more than clever animals to be managed." On the tactical display, Sarah could see the Concordants' fleet beginning to retreat, their ships backing away from the massive human vessels. Kethvar's arrogant confidence seemed to have evaporated. "Captain Webb, what happened to the rest of your people?" Webb's expression darkened. "We fought back, Commander. When the galaxy labeled us Level-1 primitives, we showed them what human ingenuity could accomplish when pushed to its limits. We learned their technology, improved upon it, and built something they couldn't understand or defeat. The museum ships? Each one contains the history and knowledge of a human world that was destroyed by the Concordants. We are the living memory of billions of people who refuse to accept their place as primitives in someone else's galaxy." Sarah watched as the Concordance vessels continued their withdrawal, and she began to understand that humanity's role in the galaxy was far more complex than she had ever imagined. The Level-1 primitives were about to remind the galaxy why they had learned to fear the sleeping giants from the edge of space. As the first shots were fired and space lit up with energies that dwarfed anything in human experience, Sarah realized that the Real story was just beginning. The galaxy had forgotten the lessons of the past, but the museum ships remembered everything, and they were about to teach those lessons all over again. The battle for Earth had begun, but it was merely the latest chapter in a war that had been raging among the stars for millennia. And now, finally, the homeworld would learn what their children had become in the darkness between the stars. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as his tactical officers coordinated with the other museum ships. Through the massive viewport, he could see the Concordance fleet maintaining their defensive formation, their crystalline hulls shimmering with barely contained energy. After 3 millennia of warfare, Webb had learned to read the signs of Concordance fear, and he could see it clearly in their hesitant positioning. "Captain, the Remembrance and Defiance have taken positions on the fleet's flanks," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim. Her augmented neural interface flickered with data streams as she processed information from dozens of sources simultaneously. "The Concordants are maintaining distance, but haven't initiated retreat protocols yet." Webb nodded, his own enhanced vision tracking the enemy movements within human precision. The genetic modifications that allowed his people to survive in deep space also granted him capabilities that would have seemed like magic to his ancestors on Earth. They're confused. High Assessor Kethvar is trying to determine if we're the same species that destroyed the hegemony. "Are we, sir?" asked Dr. Chun Lu, the ship's historian. Unlike the bridge crew, Dr. Lu had chosen to remain unmodified, maintaining the baseline human genome as a link to their origins. His presence served as a reminder of what they had once been before the galaxy had forced them to evolve. Webb considered the question carefully. It was one that had haunted him for centuries. "We are what humanity became when it learned that the universe doesn't care about your intentions, Dr. Lu. Every museum ship carries the genetic and cultural legacy of a human colony that the Concordants destroyed. We are simultaneously the descendants of those worlds and their living monuments." The communication array crackled to life, and High Assessor Kethvar's image appeared on the main screen. The aliens' bioluminescent patterns had shifted to what Webb recognized as extreme agitation. Behind Kethvar, other Concordance officials could be seen in heated discussion, their translation implants allowing Webb to catch fragments of their conversation. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves and state your intentions," Kethvar demanded, though his earlier arrogance had been replaced by obvious uncertainty. This system has been claimed by the Concordance under Expansion Protocol 7. Webb smiled, an expression that no longer looked entirely human after centuries of genetic modification. His elongated canine teeth and slightly enlarged skull gave him a predatory appearance that had proven useful in negotiations with hostile species. Hi, Assessor. I am Captain Marcus Webb of the Terra Memorial Fleet. We are here to discuss your recent classification of this system's primary species. The primitives? What concern is that of yours? These primitives happen to be our cousins, Assessor. They represent the homeworld of our species, the genetic and cultural source from which we derived. Webb gestured to the tactical display showing the massive museum ships. Perhaps you should consult your historical databases before proceeding with your expansion protocols. Webb could see the moment when recognition dawned in Keth Var's multiple eyes. The alien's bioluminescent patterns shifted rapidly through what Webb knew were colors associated with terror and disbelief. In the background, other Concordance officials were frantically accessing data terminals. Impossible, Keth Var whispered. The hegemony classified your species as extinct over 2,000 years ago. Our records show that the last human worlds were cleansed during the pacification campaigns. Your records are incomplete, Assessor. The Concordance has always made the mistake of assuming that destruction and defeat are the same thing. Webb's voice carried the weight of centuries of loss and determination. Let me educate you about human persistence. With a gesture, Webb activated the ship's historical projection systems. The space between the two fleets filled with holographic images. Human colonies under attack, evacuation ships fleeing burning worlds, children being loaded onto generation ships with coordinates for empty space between stars. When the Concordance first encountered humanity, we were indeed primitive by your standards. Chemical rockets, early fusion technology, barely capable of interstellar travel. We posed no threat to your expansion, so you classified us as Level-1 and began your relocation protocols. The projections shifted, showing the desperate exodus from humanity's first colony worlds. But humans have a particular trait that your psychological profiles never quite grasped, Assessor. We don't accept extinction quietly. When you destroyed New Geneva, the survivors didn't simply retreat to your sanctuary worlds. They disappeared into the void between galaxies and began to plan. Keth Var's patterns had stabilized into what Webb recognized as fascinated horror. The Void Dwellers. But those were just legends. Stories the conquered species told to maintain hope. Not legends, Assessor. Evolution. The holographic display now showed the development of the museum's ships. Massive vessels built in the cold emptiness between galaxies, constructed from the salvaged remains of destroyed worlds and powered by technologies that the Concordance couldn't comprehend. When you forced us to live in the darkness, we adapted. We learned to thrive in conditions that would kill most spacefaring species. Dr. Liu stepped forward, his unmodified appearance standing in stark contrast to the enhanced bridge crew. Hi, Assessor. May I share something about human nature? We are a species that defines itself through memory. When you destroyed our worlds, you didn't eliminate us. You created something far more dangerous. And what is that, primitive? You created a species whose entire purpose is remembrance. Every museum ship carries the complete cultural and genetic legacy of a destroyed human world. We don't just remember our dead, Assessor. We have become their living embodiment. Webb touched a control, and the projection shifted to show the interior of the museum ships. Vast chambers filled with art, literature, music, and scientific knowledge stretched as far as the eye could see. Gardens recreated the ecosystems of lost worlds, while memorial walls bore the names of every human being who had died in the Concordance expansion. Each ship represents approximately 50 million lost lives, Assessor. The Retribution carries the legacy of Kepler 442b, where your forces tested their new disintegration weapons on civilian populations. The Remembrance holds the memory of Ross 128b, where Concordant scientists conducted biological experiments on human children. Keth Var's translation implant was apparently struggling with the captain's emotional undertones, because the alien's response came through as confused static before resolving into words. But why did you not simply submit to relocation? The sanctuary worlds offered preservation of your species, because preservation is not the same as living, Assessor. Your sanctuary worlds are zoos designed to maintain interesting specimens. Humans require something your species has never understood: the freedom to grow, to explore, to become more than we were. Webb gestured again, and the holographic display showed the technological evolution of the museum ships. Starting with salvaged concordance technology, human engineers had systematically improved upon every system until their vessels surpassed anything the galactic powers had ever constructed. We learned from everyone who tried to destroy us: Assessor. Concordance, shield technology, hegemony weapons systems, Vorthen faster-than-light drives. But we didn't just copy these technologies. We improved them, combined them in ways their creators never imagined. That's impossible. Level-1 species lack the cognitive capacity for such advancement. Dr. Liu laughed, a sound that seemed to disturb the Concordance observers. That's your fundamental error, Assessor. You assume that intelligence is static, that a species classified at one level cannot grow beyond it. But humans specialize in adaptive intelligence. We learn from our enemies, incorporate their strengths, and develop counters to their advantages. The tactical display updated to show power readings from the museum ships. The energy signatures were unlike anything in Concordance databases, combining technologies from dozens of different species in configurations that should have been impossible. Captain Webb, Kethvar said carefully, "What exactly do you want from us?" "What I want, Assessor, is simple. I want you to reconsider your classification of this system's inhabitants. They are not level-1 primitives to be relocated at your convenience. They are the home world of a species that has already demonstrated what happens when you underestimate human potential. And if we refuse?" Webb's enhanced features shifted into an expression that combined human determination with something far more predatory. "Then, you will learn why the hegemony's final transmission was a galaxy-wide warning about the sleeping giants from the edge of space." The communication channel fell silent as Kethvar consulted with his advisors. Webb could see the heated discussion taking place on the Concordance flagship, translation algorithms struggling to keep up with the rapid exchange of concepts that had no human equivalents. Lieutenant Commander Kim looked up from her tactical station. "Captain, I'm detecting movement in the outer system. Long-range sensors show additional Concordance vessels dropping out of hyperspace. It looks like they're calling for reinforcements." Webb nodded grimly. He had expected this development. "How many ships?" "Preliminary count shows 43 additional vessels, including what appears to be a Concordance dreadnought. Estimated arrival time at our current position, 4 hours." Dr. Liu frowned. "Captain, should we withdraw? We came here to make contact with Earth, not to fight another major engagement." "Doctor, sometimes the best way to make contact is to demonstrate exactly what your species has become." Webb activated the fleet communication channel. "All museum ships, this is the retribution. Prepare for extended combat operations. We have approximately 4 hours to show the Concordance why they should reconsider their expansion into human space." The response came back immediately from the other ships. "Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Remembrance. Retribution, this is Remembrance. Memorial guns are charging. We're ready to honor our dead." Captain David Chun of the Defiance. Retribution, Defiance standing by. The children of New Singapore are ready to show these aliens what we learned from their mistakes. Webb felt the familiar weight of command settle over him. Each museum ship represented not just a vessel, but the dreams and aspirations of an entire world. When they fought, they carried the hopes of the dead and the determination of the living. "Assessor Kethvar," Webb said, reopening the communication channel. "You have 4 hours to make a decision. Either reclassify this system's inhabitants and withdraw your forces, or discover why the galaxy learned to fear the humans who refused to die quietly." As the Concordance fleet maintained their defensive formation and Earth's defense forces watched in amazement, the museum ships began their preparations for battle. In the depths of each vessel, memorial chambers hummed with activity as automated systems awakened weapons that had been refined through 3 millennia of conflict. The galaxy was about to be reminded of a fundamental truth about humanity. They were never truly primitives. They were survivors who learned from everything that tried to destroy them, and they had been learning for a very long time. Admiral Morrison stood in Earth's primary command center, watching the tactical displays with a mixture of awe and growing dread. The massive human vessels had taken positions throughout the solar system, their alien technology making Earth's most advanced warships look like toys by comparison. But Now the long-range sensors were detecting something that made his blood run cold. "Admiral, we're tracking 78 Concordance vessels moving in from 3 different vectors," reported Colonel Hayes, the tactical coordinator. "Whatever those museum ships did, it's triggered a major military response." Morrison studied the approaching fleet dispositions. The Concordance had committed significant resources to this engagement, including vessel types that Earth's databases couldn't identify. "Colonel, have we established communications with this Captain Webb?" "Yes, sir. The Retribution has agreed to coordinate with our defense grid, though Captain Webb has made it clear that our weapons are unlikely to be effective against Concordance shielding. Patch me through to him directly." The main communication screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the museum ship Retribution. Admiral Morrison had seen the preliminary reports about the modified humans, but actually seeing Captain Webb in person was unsettling. The man was clearly human in origin, but the genetic modifications were extensive enough to create something that was both familiar and alien. "Admiral Morrison," Webb said without preamble, "I assume you're calling to coordinate our defensive efforts. Among other things, Captain, I need to understand what we're facing here. My intelligence people tell me that the Concordance is committing resources to this engagement that suggest they consider you a major threat." Webb's modified features shifted into what might have been amusement. "Admiral, the Concordance considers us an existential threat to their entire civilization. We represent proof that Level-1 species can evolve beyond their control, that their galactic hierarchy isn't as permanent as they believed. And can they defeat you?" The pause before Webb answered told Morrison more than words could have. "Admiral, the museum ships are powerful, but we are also the last survivors of our civilization. Every vessel we lose represents the final extinction of an entire world's legacy. We don't fight because we're confident of victory. We fight because surrender means the complete erasure of human memory." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's lead xenobiologist, leaned into the communication pickup. "Captain Webb, I've been analyzing the data from your initial contact. The genetic modifications your people have undergone are extraordinary. How did you maintain species cohesion while adapting to such extreme environments?" "Dr. Tanaka, that's perhaps the most important question anyone has asked. The answer lies in what we call the memorial protocols." Webb gestured, and the screen split to show the interior of his vessel. "Every museum ship contains complete genetic archives of the populations we represent. When we reproduce, we don't just pass on our own genetic material. We incorporate genetic diversity from our entire memorial database." Morrison felt his understanding of the situation shift dramatically. "You're saying that each of your people carries the genetic legacy of millions of individuals?" "Exactly. A single museum ship crew member might carry genetic contributions from 10,000 different ancestors. This allowed us to adapt to extreme environments while maintaining the essential characteristics that make us human." The tactical alarms began sounding throughout the command center. "Admiral," came Colonel Hayes' voice, "the Concordance advance elements have entered the outer system. Estimated time to engagement range, 90 minutes. Webb's image turned to address someone off-screen before returning his attention to Morrison. "Admiral, I'm uploading tactical data to your systems. Your fleet should take positions behind the asteroid belt. What about to happen will generate energy signatures that could damage unshielded vessels." "Captain, what exactly are you planning?" "Admiral, for 3,000 years, the museum ships have been perfecting weapons designed specifically to defeat Concordance technology. Today, we're going to demonstrate why the hegemony's final message was a warning about human adaptive capability." The communication channel closed, leaving Morrison staring at empty screen. Around the command center, technicians were frantically processing the tactical data that the museum ships had provided. What they were seeing defied conventional understanding of space warfare. "Sir," reported Dr. Tanaka, "the energy signatures from those human vessels are unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be using some kind of hybrid technology that combines multiple alien propulsion and weapon systems. How is that possible?" According to the technical specifications Captain Webb transmitted, they've been reverse engineering technology from every species they've encountered over the past 3 millennia. "But they didn't just copy the technology, Admiral. They improved it." Morrison looked at the tactical display, showing the approaching Concordance fleet. The alien vessels moved in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls gleaming with barely contained energy. Each ship was a masterwork of engineering that represented millennia of technological development. Colonel Hayes, what's the status of our fleet? All vessels are moving to positions behind the asteroid belt as requested. Admiral Chin reports that the Enterprise Battle Group is ready to provide support, though her tactical officers are skeptical about the effectiveness of our weapons against Concordance shielding. Understood. Make sure all ships are recording everything that happens. If we don't survive this, someone needs to know what humanity is capable of. The next hour passed in tense preparation as both fleets maneuvered for optimal positioning. The museum ships had spread throughout the inner system, their massive hulls dwarfing even Earth's largest vessels. Each ship was a monument to destruction, carrying the memory of civilizations that the Concordance had tried to erase. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from High Assessor Kethvar, announced the communications officer. Put it through. Kethvar's image appeared on screen, and Morrison could see the strain in the alien's bioluminescent patterns. Behind the High Assessor, the bridge of his vessel was filled with activity as Concordance officers prepared for battle. Admiral Morrison of Earth, I offer you one final opportunity to avoid unnecessary destruction. Withdraw your vessels and submit to standard relocation protocols. The Concordance has no desire to eliminate your species entirely. Morrison felt anger surge through him at the alien's casual arrogance. High Assessor, this is our system and these are our worlds. We're not going anywhere. Then, you will share the fate of the other human colonies that chose resistance over wisdom. The transmission cut off, and Morrison turned to address his command staff. All ships, prepare for combat operations. Whatever happens next, remember that we're fighting for the right of humanity to determine its own destiny. On the tactical display, the Concordance fleet had formed into an attack formation that Morrison recognized from Earth's military databases. It was the same pattern they had used to destroy the human colonies of Kepler, 442b, and Ross, 128b, a formation designed to overwhelm defensive positions through coordinated strikes. Admiral, came Captain Webb's voice over the communication channel, I want you to observe something that your species needs to understand. When the galaxy labels you as primitives, it's giving you an advantage they don't realize. What do you mean? They expect certain behaviors, certain technological capabilities. They prepare for threats they understand. But humans specialize in becoming something their enemies don't expect. On the screen, Morrison watched as the museum ships began to change. Their hulls, which had appeared to be solid metal, started to flow like liquid. Weapon ports opened in configurations that defied conventional design principles, and energy signatures spiked to levels that made the sensors struggle to maintain accuracy. My God, whispered Dr. Tanaka. They're not ships in any conventional sense. They're adaptive weapons platforms. The Concordance fleet opened fire first, their crystalline weapons sending beams of coherent energy across space. The attack struck the museum ships with enough force to vaporize mountains, but the human vessels absorbed the energy and converted it into something else entirely. Admiral Morrison, came Webb's voice, now carrying undertones that sounded almost musical. Watch closely. This is what 3,000 years of human innovation looks like when it's focused on a single goal. The museum ships returned fire, but their weapons were unlike anything Morrison had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they launched what appeared to be clouds of metallic particles that moved with impossible coordination. The particles struck the Concordance shields and began to replicate, spreading across the alien vessels like a living infection. Nanomachine swarms, breathed Dr. Tanaka. They're using self-replicating technology to convert the Concordance ships into raw materials. Within minutes, the first Concordance vessels began to dissolve, their crystalline hulls breaking down at the molecular level. But instead of being destroyed, the material was being reformed into new structures that bore human design principles. Captain Webb, Morrison called over the communication channel. What are those things? Memorial nanomachines, Admiral. Each one carries the complete technological knowledge of a destroyed human world. When they encounter alien technology, they don't just destroy it. They improve it and add it to our capabilities. The battle was unlike anything in recorded military history. The Concordance fleet, despite their technological superiority and numerical advantage, found themselves fighting an enemy that learned from every attack and adapted in real time. Their weapons, once absorbed by the museum ships, were reverse-engineered and turned back against them with improvements that made them far more effective. Admiral, reported Colonel Hayes. The Concordance fleet is attempting to withdraw. They're sending emergency transmissions on all frequencies. Morrison watched as the elegant alien vessels tried to escape the expanding clouds of memorial nanomachines. Some succeeded, their faster-than-light drives allowing them to flee to hyperspace. But others were caught in the transformation process, their crews evacuating in escape pods as their ships became something new and alien. Captain Webb, what happens to the converted vessels? They become part of the memorial fleet, Admiral. Each ship we capture carries forward the memory of the worlds that created us. The Concordance forced us to become something they couldn't understand, and now they're learning the consequences of that decision. As the battle concluded, Morrison found himself looking at a solar system that had been fundamentally transformed. Where once there had been a small Concordance invasion fleet and a handful of museum ships, there was now a growing armada of hybrid vessels that combined human adaptability with alien technology. Admiral Morrison, came Webb's voice, I believe it's time your species learned about humanity's true role in the galaxy. We are not the primitives the Concordance believes us to be. We are the species that evolution itself has been preparing for this moment. Morrison stared at the tactical display and realized that Earth's first contact with alien life had ended with humanity demonstrating that they were far from the level one primitives the galaxy believed them to be. They were something much more dangerous, a species that turned every attempt to destroy them into an opportunity to become stronger. 3 days after the battle, Captain Marcus Webb stood in the memorial chamber of the Retribution, surrounded by holographic displays showing the names of every human being who had died in the Concordance expansion. The chamber stretched for kilometers through the heart of the massive vessel, its walls displaying the faces, stories, and achievements of 50 million souls from the destroyed world of Kepler 442b. Dr. Elena Vasquez from Earth's research vessel Endeavour stood beside him, her unmodified human appearance a stark contrast to Webb's enhanced form. She had requested this tour to better understand what the museum ships represented, but Webb could see the emotional impact the memorial was having on her. Every face, she asked quietly, her voice barely audible in the vast chamber. Every face, every name, every life story we could preserve, Webb confirmed. The Concordance believed that destroying our physical worlds would erase human civilization. They never understood that humans don't just live in the present, Dr. Vasquez. We carry our entire history with us. They paused before a section dedicated to children who had died in the final bombardment of Kepler 442b. The holographic displays showed children playing, learning, dreaming of futures they would never see. Webb's enhanced vision could detect the subtle changes in Dr. Vasquez's biosigns that indicated she was struggling with the emotional weight of what she was witnessing. How do you bear it? She asked. How do you carry the memory of so much loss without being consumed by it? Webb considered the question carefully. It was one that every museum ship crew member had to answer for themselves. Because memory without purpose is just pain, Doctor. We don't remember the dead to punish ourselves for surviving. We remember them to ensure that their dreams continue to live. They moved deeper into the memorial chamber, past sections dedicated to artists, scientists, engineers, and ordinary people who had made Kepler 442b a living world. Each display included not just biographical information, but examples of their work, their contributions to human culture, their hopes for the future. The children's section includes their school projects, Webb explained, gesturing to a display showing a young girl's report on terraforming techniques. Maria Santos was 8 years old when she wrote that paper about improving atmosphere processors. Her ideas were actually quite innovative for a child her age. Dr. Vasquez stopped walking and stared at the display. She wanted to help make new worlds better places to live. Yes, and now her ideas are incorporated into the terraforming systems we use to establish new human settlements. Death ended her life, Doctor, but it didn't end her contribution to human knowledge. They were interrupted by an announcement from the ship's communication system. Captain Webb to the bridge. Priority communication from Earth Command. Webb and Dr. Vasquez made their way through the ship's corridors, past chambers containing libraries, laboratories, and gardens that recreated the ecosystems of Kepler 442b. Crew members they passed showed the same genetic modifications as Webb, but each carried subtle differences that reflected their adaptation to different environments and responsibilities. On the bridge, Admiral Morrison's image dominated the main screen, his expression grim with concern. Behind him, Earth's command center showed intense activity as personnel processed data from across the solar system. Captain Webb, we need to discuss the implications of what happened 3 days ago. The converted Concordance vessels are exhibiting behavior patterns that my technical staff can't explain. Webb took his position at the command station, his enhanced nervous system interfacing directly with the ship's computer systems. What kind of behavior, Admiral? They're building something, Captain, in the asteroid belt, using materials salvaged from disabled Concordance ships. Our long-range sensors show construction activity on a massive scale. Dr. Vasquez moved to a secondary station, her unmodified features showing confusion. Captain, I thought the Memorial nanomachines were designed to convert enemy technology, not to initiate independent construction projects. The nanomachines aren't just converting technology, Doctor. They're implementing plans that have been developing for over 3,000 years. Webb called up a display showing the construction activity in the asteroid belt. What you're seeing is the beginning of a communications relay designed to contact other human settlements throughout the galaxy. Admiral Morrison leaned forward. Other settlements? Captain, how many human colonies are we talking about? Admiral, when the Concordants began their expansion into human space 3 millennia ago, they encountered approximately 200 colony worlds. They destroyed most of them, relocated the populations of others to their sanctuary worlds, but some settlements escaped into deep space. Webb activated a holographic display showing star maps with human settlements marked in various colors. Red markers indicated destroyed colonies. Yellow showed those that had been relocated, but there were dozens of green markers scattered across the galaxy. The green markers represent colonies that successfully evacuated before the Concordance' arrival. They've been hiding in the void between galaxies, developing technology, and waiting for an opportunity to return. Dr. Vasquez studied the display with growing amazement. You're saying there are hidden human civilizations throughout the galaxy? Not just hidden, Doctor. Evolved. Each settlement has been adapting to different environments and challenges for 3,000 years. Some have become nomadic traders who move between star systems in ships that look like asteroids. Others have established colonies in the cores of gas giants where the Concordance can't detect them. Admiral Morrison's expression showed he was beginning to understand the scope of what they were dealing with. And the communication relay will contact all of them. It will send a signal that's been waiting 3 millennia to be transmitted, Admiral. A message that the home world has been located and that humanity is ready to return to the galaxy. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Webb could see the mixture of excitement and fear in the faces around him as they realized that Earth's first contact with alien life had triggered the return of human civilizations that had been scattered across the galaxy. Captain, came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Kim from her tactical station. I'm detecting incoming hyperspace signatures. Multiple vessels approaching from different vectors. Webb smiled, an expression that his modified features made both human and predatory. Faster than I expected. Admiral Morrison, you're about to meet some of humanity's other children. The main screen split to show tactical displays as ships began emerging from hyperspace throughout the solar system. These vessels were unlike anything in Earth's databases, their designs reflecting 3,000 years of independent technological development. Some looked more like living organisms than constructed ships, their hulls flowing and adapting as they moved. Others appeared to be assembled from the remains of destroyed alien vessels, creating hybrid technologies that defied conventional understanding. My God, whispered Admiral Morrison. How many are there? The first wave will be reconnaissance vessels from the nearest settlements, Webb explained. If the home world proves to be secure and capable of defending itself, the larger fleets will follow. Dr. Vasquez was studying the sensor readings from the new arrivals. Captain, the biosignatures from some of these ships don't read as entirely human. What happened to the colonists during their exile? Evolution, Doctor. When you're forced to survive in environments that no baseline human could tolerate, you adapt. Some colonies modified themselves for life in zero-gravity environments. Others adapted to survive on worlds with extreme radiation or atmospheric conditions. A new communication signal came through, and the main screen showed a figure that was recognizably human but dramatically modified. Her skin had a metallic sheen that suggested cybernetic integration, and Her eyes glowed with an inner light that indicated extensive neural enhancement. Captain Webb, this is Commander Lisa Park of the Void Walker Collective. We received your signal and came as quickly as possible. Is the homeworld secure? Commander Park, Earth is secure and its population is intact. The local Concordance fleet has been neutralized, and we've established defensive positions throughout the system. Excellent. We're detecting Concordance communication signatures throughout local space. Have they issued a general alert about human resurgence? Webb nodded grimly. I'm afraid so, Commander. The galaxy now knows that humanity has returned to active space. Commander Park's modified features showed what might have been amusement. Then, it's time for the galaxy to remember why they learned to fear us, Captain. The Voidwalkers are ready to support whatever operations you deem necessary. Additional communication channels opened as more human vessels arrived in the system. Each group had developed differently during their exile, creating a diversity of human subspecies that reflected 3 millennia of adaptation to different environments and challenges. Captain Sarah Chun of the asteroid miners reported that her people had been preparing mining operations to support large-scale fleet construction. Commander David Kim of the gas giant colonies had brought ships designed to harvest resources from stellar atmospheres. The nomadic traders had established communication networks that spanned hundreds of star systems. Admiral Morrison watched this reunion with growing amazement and concern. Captain Webb, what exactly are you planning? Admiral, for 3,000 years, the galaxy has believed that humanity was extinct or relocated to sanctuary worlds where we could be safely ignored. They've built their civilizations on the assumption that humans are no longer a factor in galactic politics. Webb gestured to the tactical display showing the growing fleet of human vessels surrounding Earth. They're about to learn that reports of our extinction were greatly exaggerated. And more importantly, they're going to discover what 3 millennia of human innovation looks like when it's been focused on a single goal, which is proving that Level-1 primitives can become something the galaxy has never seen before. Admiral, we're not here to conquer or destroy. We're here to demonstrate that human adaptability is the most dangerous force in the universe. As more human vessels arrived and the communication relay in the asteroid belt neared completion, Admiral Morrison began to understand that Earth's first contact with alien life had triggered something far more significant than a simple defensive action. Humanity was about to announce to the galaxy that they had not only survived their attempted extinction, but had evolved into something entirely new. The Level-1 primitives were coming home, and they were bringing 3,000 years of carefully planned revenge with them. 6 months after the first contact, Captain Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed station Remembrance Point, watching as the largest gathering of human ships in 3 millennia prepared for departure. The station orbited Earth at a distance that provided optimal coordinates for fleet operations while remaining close enough to serve as humanity's primary staging area. Through the massive viewport, Webb could see vessels representing every surviving human settlement in the galaxy. The museum ships formed the core of the fleet, their massive hulls serving as mobile monuments to the worlds the Concordance had destroyed. Around them, hundreds of other vessels demonstrated the incredible diversity that 3,000 years of independent evolution had produced. The Voidwalkers had contributed ships that seemed to bend space around them, their hulls incorporating technologies salvaged from a dozen different alien civilizations. The asteroid miners brought massive industrial vessels capable of converting entire asteroids into fleet resources within hours. The gas giant colonies provided ships designed to harvest stellar material and survive in the cores of stars. Admiral Morrison joined Webb at the viewport, his expression showing the strain of the past 6 months. Earth's government had struggled to comprehend the implications of humanity's galactic diaspora, and the preparations for what Webb called the Reminder Campaign had challenged every assumption about humanity's place in the universe. Final fleet count? Morrison asked, though he had already seen the reports. 473 operational vessels representing 12 different human subspecies, Webb replied, plus supporting elements including mobile construction platforms, supply ships, and communication relays. And you're certain this is necessary? Webb turned to face the Admiral, his modified features showing the weight of 3 millennia of memory. Admiral, in the past 6 months, the Concordance has issued 17 separate expansion orders into human space. They've classified Earth as a Level one world suitable for strip mining once the native population is relocated. They believe the defeat of their initial fleet was an anomaly, a single lucky victory that won't be repeated. And the other galactic powers? The hegemony remnant has offered to purchase Earth's population for their labor programs. The Vorthan Collective has suggested that human genetic material would be useful for their biological experiments. The Syntharch Assembly considers us a contamination factor that should be sterilized before we spread to other systems. Morrison felt his anger surge at the casual dismissal of human rights by the galaxy's dominant civilizations. In other words, they still see us as Level-1 primitives to be managed or eliminated. Exactly, which is why the galaxy needs to be reminded of what happens when they underestimate human adaptability. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached from the station's command center, her expression grim with concern. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the Concordance Embassy on Galactic Council Prime. High Assessor Kethvar is requesting immediate diplomatic contact." Webb smiled, an expression that his modified features made distinctly predatory. "After 6 months of silence, the Concordance wants to talk." "How interesting." The main communication screen activated, showing High Assessor Kethvar in what appeared to be an official diplomatic chamber. The aliens' bioluminescent patterns showed extreme agitation, and Webb could see other galactic representatives in the background, suggesting this was a formal session of the Galactic Council. "Captain Webb of the Human Memorial Fleet," Kethvar began, his translator struggling with the formal diplomatic protocols. "The Galactic Council has reviewed the events in the Sol system and wishes to establish formal diplomatic relations with your species." "How generous of them," Webb replied dryly. 6 months ago, you classified us as Level-1 primitives suitable for relocation. What changed your assessment?" Kethvar's patterns shifted through colors that Webb recognized as embarrassment and fear. "Our analysis of your technological capabilities was incomplete. The Council recognizes that humanity has achieved a level of development that warrants reconsideration of your classification status." "And what classification would the Council consider appropriate?" The pause before Kethvar answered told Webb everything he needed to know about the discussions that had been taking place among the galactic powers. The Council is prepared to offer humanity Level 3 autonomous species status, with territorial recognition for the Sol system and immediate surrounding space. Admiral Morrison stepped forward. "Level 3? What does that mean in practical terms?" "Level 3 species are granted limited self-governance within designated territorial boundaries," Kethvar explained. "Your species would be permitted to develop independently without interference, provided you remain within your assigned space, and do not attempt to expand into regions controlled by established galactic powers." Webb's laugh was not entirely human, carrying harmonics that his vocal modifications made possible. "Assessor, I don't think you understand our position. We're not requesting permission to exist within boundaries you've defined for us." "Then, what exactly are you proposing?" "We're not proposing anything, Assessor. We're informing you that humanity is resuming its natural expansion into galactic space. Any species or organization that attempts to interfere with that expansion will be reminded of why the hegemony issued galaxy-wide warnings about sleeping giants." The communication channel filled with the sounds of multiple alien voices as the Galactic Council representatives reacted to Webb's statement. Kethvar's translator was apparently struggling with concepts that had no equivalent in Concordance thinking. "Captain Webb, surely you cannot be serious. Humanity controls, perhaps, 500 ships. The combined forces of the Galactic Council include over 50,000 vessels equipped with technologies developed across millions of years of advancement." Webb gestured, and the communication screen split to show tactical displays of the human fleet surrounding Earth. "Assessor, you're making the same mistake your predecessors made 3,000 years ago. You're assuming that quantity and age automatically translate to effectiveness." "What do you mean?" "Every ship in our fleet incorporates technologies and strategies developed through 3 millennia of warfare against galactic powers. We don't just use your technology, Assessor. We improve it, and we've had a very long time to perfect our improvements." Dr. Vasquez activated additional displays showing the technological analysis that Earth scientists had compiled. "High Assessor, human adaptive methodology has produced weapon systems that combine the best elements of every major galactic civilization. But, more importantly, we've developed technologies that your species can't even understand." "That's impossible." The Concordance has monitored human development for millennia. Webb's modified features shifted into an expression of pity. Assessor, you monitored the humans who submitted to your authority. You never saw the humans who disappeared into the void between galaxies and spent 3,000 years learning to hate everything you represent. The tactical displays updated to show energy signatures from the human fleet. The readings were unlike anything in galactic databases, combining power levels that should have been impossible with efficiency ratings that defied conventional physics. Captain Webb, came a new voice from the Galactic Council chamber. This is Prime Syntharch Zirian of the Assembly. Your threats against the established galactic order cannot be permitted to continue. Webb turned his attention to the new speaker, a being that appeared to be more machine than biological entity. The Syntharch Assembly represented the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy, and their intervention suggested that the Council was taking humanity's resurgence seriously. Prime Syntharch, humanity has no intention of threatening the galactic order. We plan to completely replace it. The communication channel erupted in what Webb's translator identified as expressions of outrage and disbelief from multiple species. When the noise subsided, Prime Syntharch Zirian's voice carried undertones of what might have been respect. You believe that 500 primitive vessels can challenge civilizations that have dominated the galaxy for millions of years. Prime Syntharch, we know they can, because we've been testing our capabilities against your patrol fleets for the past 6 months. Webb activated new displays showing combat footage that made Admiral Morrison's blood run cold. Human vessels engaging Concordance patrol ships, hegemony scout fleets, and Vorthan exploration groups. In every case, the galactic forces were systematically dismantled by weapons and tactics they couldn't comprehend. Every engagement has been carefully documented and analyzed, Webb explained. Your civilizations have become complacent, relying on technologies that haven't fundamentally changed in millennia. You've forgotten that evolution doesn't stop just because you've achieved dominance. Prime Syntharch Zirian's mechanical voice carried new undertones of calculation. What exactly do you want from the galactic powers, Captain Webb? We want you to remember something that you apparently forgot, Prime Syntharch. Humans are not level-1 primitives. We never were. We are the species that turns every attempt to destroy us into an opportunity to become something our enemies can't understand. Webb gestured to the displays showing the memorial chambers of the museum ships. Every human world you destroyed, every population you relocated, every child who died because you classified us as expendable contributed to our evolution. We are the living memory of your mistakes, and we have become very good at learning from our enemies. The communication channel fell silent as the implications of Webb's words sank in among the Galactic Council representatives. Admiral Morrison watched their expressions change as they began to understand that humanity's return to the galaxy wasn't a request for recognition, but an announcement of fundamental change. The human fleet will depart Earth in 72 hours, Webb continued. We will be visiting the sanctuary worlds where our people have been held for 3 millennia. We will be liberating human settlements that have been classified as primitive labor sources, and we will be establishing new colonies on worlds that the Galactic Council has designated as restricted space. And if we resist, asked High Assessor Kethvar. Webb's smile was entirely human despite his modifications, carrying the warmth of genuine affection combined with the promise of absolute ruthlessness. Then, you'll learn exactly what 3,000 years of human innovation looks like when it's focused on a single goal, Assessor. You'll discover why sleeping giants should never be awakened. The communication channel closed, leaving the observation deck in silence. Admiral Morrison stared at the fleet surrounding Earth and realized that humanity's role in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer the level-1 primitives seeking recognition from established powers. They had become something entirely new, something that carried the dreams of the dead and the determination of survivors who had refused to accept extinction. Captain, Morrison said quietly, what happens if this goes wrong? What if the galactic powers unite against us? Webb looked out at the memorial fleet, each ship carrying the legacy of worlds that have been destroyed by galactic arrogance. Then, Admiral, the galaxy will learn that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our numbers. It was our absolute refusal to die quietly when someone decides we're inconvenient. As the fleet prepared for departure, Webb knew that the next phase of human expansion would reshape the galaxy forever. The Level-1 primitives were about to remind the universe that evolution never stops, and that sometimes the most dangerous species are the ones that everyone assumes are safely extinct. The sleeping giants were fully awake now, and they had not forgotten a single lesson that 3,000 years of survival had taught them.